I will stand. We will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So you've got the sign-in sheet. Yeah, doesn't appear that we have anybody signed in to speak during public comments. If there's anybody who wishes to do so, it'd be good to go ahead and sign this now. If not, okay, good. Well, it's good to see everybody on this chilly evening in pre-spring, I guess. So we'll call the regular scheduled meeting of the Beckley Common Council to order for March 14th, 2023. First order of business is reading and approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting dated February 28th, 2023.
I move that we adopt the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve and adopt the minutes as presented. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by a like sign, that motion carries. Thank you. Next, first reading an ordinance submitting zoning property on Central Avenue. Mr. Fowle?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, tonight will be the first reading of this ordinance. This ordinance, which I will read by title, basically changes the zone from M, which is manufacturing, to B1, which is neighborhood highway business district. The public hearing and second reading of this ordinance will be April the 11th. That is because we have a certain number of days we have to have after we pass tonight for the notice to be in the paper, the notice of public hearing. So it will be on April the 11th, assuming it passes tonight at first reading. This ordinance is titled, "An Ordinance Amending the City of Beckley Zoning Ordinance of 1971 and the Comprehensive Plan of the City of Beckley and the Zone Map of the City of Beckley, as from time to time has been amended to provide for the rezoning of 7 parcels on Central Avenue and 1 parcel on Virginia Street, all in the City of Beckley, Raleigh County, West Virginia, including parcels 33, 34, 37, 38, 40, and 41, as shown on the Beckley Corporation Tax Map 29, and parcels 272 and 272.1, as shown on Beckley Corporation Tax Map 30, from M Manufacturing District to B1 Neighborhood Highway Business District." And council may note that there is an Exhibit A attached to this ordinance. That is the plat that has been that was prepared at the request of Mr. Brown, who is here with us tonight, and it does contain meets and bounds description, so that appears to be in order. And at this time, Mayor, I will ask if you would present that for first reading, or for approval on first reading.
Okay, as you mentioned, Mr. Brown is here this evening. If anybody has any questions prior to the vote of Mr. Brown, feel free to ask him. I'm sure he'd be willing and able to answer any questions.
I do thank you for sending the email a couple weeks ago about the parking situation. That was enlightening. It looks like, you know, you probably had that part kind of figured out. So, thank you.
Okay.
Well, how many businesses do you foresee?
Right now, we have 19 businesses interested to lease space,
Great.
and we're looking at probably about another 40 or so.
Wow. Great. Okay.
Very good. Any other questions of Mr.
Great.
Brown? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to pass this ordinance as presented by Mr. Fowle on first reading, set for public hearing on April 11th.
Mayor, before we do, one
Yes.
question here. It said 7 parcels, but when you count them, there's 8. Are you treating 272 and 272.1 as one?
There's 7, I believe there are 7 parcels on Central Avenue and 1 parcel on Virginia.
I was just counting what you had here.
Mr. Brown, any clarification there for Councilman Price?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there's 6 parcels. As you look at the tax map, parcels 33, 34, 37, 38, 40, and 41, that's on tax map 29, and then parcels 272 and 272.1 are on tax map 30. So that's eight parcels.
Right, and it reads up there for 7 parcels. I just wanted to make clarification on that.
Well, it says,
Oh, and 1, I'm sorry, my bad.
Yes.
Gotcha. We're good.
Seven parcels, and since they have
And one on Virginia.
You almost caught him, Jim.
Jim's tough.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay. We have a motion and second to approve the ordinance on the first reading and set for a public hearing on April 11th. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by a like sign, that motion carries. Thank you. Next, second read and public hearing of an ordinance concerning property conveyance. Mr. Fowl?
yes, sir, Mayor, tonight is the second reading, and once I read this by title, we will have a public hearing. The first reading occurred on February the 14th, and this is the ordinance that conveys to the city 2.2 acres from this property that's currently owned by the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources. And this is the property where the homeless shelter is currently located. And this will make this property and the owner of the property eligible for certain grants, which will permit the improvements to this property and to the shelter. The ordinance is titled, "An Ordinance Concerning Property to be Conveyed by the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, an agency of the state of West Virginia, to the city of Beckley." And this is the property that's located out off of South Eisenhower Drive. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if anyone in the audience has any comments they'd like to make either in favor of or in opposition to this ordinance.
We have Crystal Alonso with us here this evening, the Executive Director of RCCA. Crystal, do you have any comments?
I don't have anything further than what I said at the last.
You made a good presentation. Mike, do you have anything you want to say? Okay. All righty.
Does anybody have any comments that they would desire to make that's sitting here in front of us? And I assume there's nobody online.
We do have people online today.
Okay, can you see, Mayor, can you ask they raise
Sure.
their hand?
Okay, for those who would like to make a comment during the public hearing, if you're calling them by phone, please dial *3, which in essence raises your hand to be recognized. If connected by a computer, click the hand icon on your participants panel. So Anthony, you think we do have speakers?
It doesn't appear that anybody raised their hand.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Based upon that, I will close the public hearing, and Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, this is something that Crystal and Danielle and Mike presented to us at previous meetings. And again, this is merely an effort to enable RCCCA/DHHR to qualify for more grants that as building owners, they would not be qualified to apply for. So the city will take ownership of the current homeless shelter. And I think there's a lot of work already underway. I think you all have already spent about $1.5 million on window repairs and other improvements to the property. So, right. So with that, any questions or comments before we ask for a motion to approve?
Yes, Mayor, I do have a question. The residents, if they file a lawsuit, will the city be liable, or would we be considered as a defendant?
You know, my opinion is we'll have an intergovernmental agreement which would basically protect us from that sort of suit because we merely own the building. Is that correct, Mr. Fowl?
Yes, sir, and also any building that the city owns would be insured. The city will
Right.
certainly have protection.
Okay.
Right.
But the city should not have any actual liability, because the city is not going to be the one actually operating the facility.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions before I request a motion to vote on this ordinance? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as described by Mr. Fowle on the second reading.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the ordinance concerning the conveyance of this property to the city. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by a like sign, motion carries. Thank you. Next, approval of the budget for the coming fiscal year, July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. Mr. Trump?
Yes, sir. I've supplied every member of council with the summary page that we'll be sending to the auditor's office if it's approved this evening. This pretty much mirrors the comprehensive budget I gave to every member of council several weeks ago. There is a slight difference in the aggregate total. I had to estimate the amount of property taxes and when I compiled that information for you, but the county has provided accurate figures, and it went up a few $1,000s, and so the total aggregate revenue amount would go up, and it was distributed and had to be balanced out through expenses. So this is pretty much what we'll submit if council approves it.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Trump on the budget? Again, I'd like to compliment Mr. Trump and his staff and our controller, Jessica Chandler, and all who are involved in putting this budget together and communicating the essence of the budget to council. As always, it's a great job that Billy takes on and really does a great job of. So, any other questions or comments of Mr. Trump? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the budget as presented. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by a like sign, that motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Now, the old business. Does any member of council have any issues, questions, comments under old business? Hearing none, does any member of council have any comments under new business?
Well, I'd like to tell you about my day.
Well, let's chat.
It's rather interesting.
Good.
8:30 this morning, I met down at code enforcement, and I spent my day at code enforcement.
Wow.
And it's a very eye-opening experience. You have a department down there that works very, very hard. Everybody was busy, and they were quite nice, and so for 3 hours, I drove around Beckley with a code enforcement officer, and I looked at the dilapidated properties for 3 solid hours. We got a problem out there. And, you know, it's no area is immune to it either. And I don't have the answer. They don't have the answer. But I was told about last week or so, they went to a conference with other cities, and there were, you know, state employees that tried to explain and kind of help them get over this little bump. And I think every council member is invited to visit code enforcement, and I highly recommend it. After visiting all the sites around town, and I know I didn't see them all, that Jeannie invited me in, and she showed me on video how she processes this, and it's cumbersome. And later she, you know, told me that she had like 60 cases that were like in Matt's courtroom about these, litter and structures and just the list just goes on and on and on. And maybe after, we all visit his department and see what we're up against, maybe we should come together as a council in a workshop and look this
I think it's
over
good,
because,
yeah.
and Billy, if you haven't been to spend an hour with the code enforcement officer and watch what they have to say, or Rob, I mean, it's
We
so-
spend a lot of time with Captain Morgan, believe me, and I agree with everything you say.
It's something else.
Did you happen to drive by that salvage yard on the corner of F Street and South Faith Street?
No, we didn't go over on that.
Okay, well, just one, just out of curiosity. Because that is a problem.
Well, I'm not my brother's keeper either.
Okay,
Mayor, I have a comment.
yes, ma'am.
In the county, there's a reporting mechanism for Property Safety Enforcement Agency, and there is a complaint form. I don't know whether we have something like that in the city, but Beckley's the county seat, and perhaps we could mirror that. No one has to, it can be an anonymous person. So when you're trying to look at abandoned structures, and Tom, it's not just Beckley, it's
I know.
everywhere. Wheeling has the same issues, Hinton has the same issues.
Everywhere.
But it could help perhaps the administration if there was a reporting way to say, granted, Beckley's not as big as the county, but at least we do have that complaint form so that it's a starting point and it doesn't get lost. We did an assessment of abandoned buildings in the city, and we are getting ready, in the city and the county, and we're getting ready to see how we've done in the last 5 years. How many have been taken down. But one of the issues that's really tough is if you have a absentee property owner, and then you can't serve them, you don't know where they are. If you have something that has asbestos, that's also an issue. If it changes owners, and if you have a notice of violation for either litter or it meets the criteria for a dilapidation, it's dilapidated, and it changes ownership, you have to start all over again. So they're trying to see if maybe you can do something different to not have to restart the process over when you have one that's already in the program. Do we have a reporting mechanism?
We do have the city's website, and we get emails through it.
But is there actually a complaint form on there that somebody can turn over to you?
Just emails.
You know, the
an
only thing
email.
I would say, and I agree with what you're saying, there is, in my mind, as there always has been, and I think it's even become more prominent, more prevalent under Captain Morgan's direction as the chief code officer. There's a lot of communication between Mr. Fowle, who has to make sure that legally we are enabled to demolish the structure, and then Board of Public Works. I mean, right now in the city of Beckley, we probably have 4 or 5 already scheduled to come down. Some we're doing our own, some we're using Empire Salvage, but I think, in my mind, the communication and notification is exceptional between Captain Morgan, Mr. Fowle, Public Works, everybody involved with trying to rid ourselves of this.
And like the police gets involved because some places are unsafe
Yeah.
and some of the
People are
people
squatting.
living in it are like, they gotta be real careful with. So,
Yeah.
the police is definitely involved in the situation too. It's, what you're saying about it makes a village, just, whatever that.
It takes a village.
Yeah, it takes a village.
It takes a village, right, yeah.
Mr. Brown, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just hope that the city would not look at tearing down structures as the first means of defense. I work with tons of investors, I know other real estate agents do as well, that are looking for properties to rehab. Unfortunately, when a property is torn down, we don't have people to rebuild them, we don't have money to be able to buy all of the materials necessary to rebuild them, and we don't have the labor force to be able to build them. So when that building is torn down or that house is torn down, that is an opportunity lost. And I think if we could work with the industry to find people that will invest the money into rehabbing these structures, I think we need to pursue that with all vigor, because we're not being able to rebuild structures.
That's a good point. The only thing that I would respond to, in every case that I'm aware of, and I'm not an engineer, I'm not a contractor, but the buildings are far beyond any thought of renovation. I mean, it's a desperation move. That's my personal opinion. Now, along those lines, Billy Trump is investigating what are called land banks, where the city can purchase that property and invite investors to build affordable housing. They're doing this in Kanawha County. The city of Charleston recently cut a ribbon on a land bank house that had been on a vacant piece of property where a house had been demolished. And I understand that there are in Kanawha County, there are 42 such houses that have come from land banks. So it appeared to me that there are investors out there, if they have a vacant piece of property, who want to construct a house that's affordable and can turn it quickly. But then again, I agree with what you're saying, and we don't tear down houses just to say we've torn down 20 houses the past year. In my mind, the only time we tear down houses is if they are truly beyond any reasonable, affordable means of renovation. Is that safe to say, Donnie?
Yeah. Well, I have one right now. I've been holding out probably for 2 or 3 years. But it's finally at the point last time I visited that it's to the structural point where it'll be cheaper to build a new structure there. So that is considered when we look at most of them. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 that goes through that we get demoed because of other reasons, being crime or, having issues for neighbors that could be saved. But for the most part, if we can we leave them as long as we can.
Right.
Maybe, if I may, I think it was 6 years ago that Andrea Radford, then president, and me, vice president for the Historic Landmark Commission, initialized and found other statutes that allowed a demolition by neglect program that I don't believe you were mayor at the time. I believe it was the prior mayor, but we'd come up with statutes for these out-of-staters that purchase properties, and then we watch them fall down around our ears while nothing's done and they can't be reached. It doesn't mean that it's torn down, but whenever roofs are leaking and we're in this first decade of demise, the city has the opportunity, and this works in other cities, where they take possession of such structures if notice isn't responded to and people aren't making a good faith effort to improve things. And frankly, we'll find somebody who will renovate and fix some of these old structures. I mean, the building I'm lusting after right now, we can't rebuild. We don't have masons that could build it. Like, it's incredible, the craftsmanship that is in some of these. I mean, 208 Main Street, 345 Prince Street. I mean, these structures have been abandoned for 12 plus years. I mean, and they have so much potential. So if we ever want to workshop demolition by neglect, the work's been done, I'd be happy to.
We
Brian,
talked about land banks too. I mean, we had a long discussion there.
The state, West Virginia Code Officials Association had we have a quarterly session to get continuing education credits, and it's either on building inspections or different topics. And this one, we had a bunch of representatives from the state that came in and talked about all these issues. It's possible, we're going to try to arrange to get at least some of those speakers to come to Beckley. And we'll invite everybody and maybe some of the surrounding cities that may not have made it to Flatwoods where that one was held. So we're working on that now. I think a couple of them already said they would come to Beckley to do, host another seminar.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Brian, the Chamber of Commerce, Raleigh County Make It Shine, we're getting ready to do a litter index to see where we need to have litter sweeps and that type of thing. We're also doing an abandoned building index, and we will supply you with pictures and addresses, and then you can take those pictures back to the investors to see if they would be interested. And going forward, wouldn't it be wonderful, maybe 6 months from now, you can report to us that maybe 4 or 5 addresses, the investor said, hey, we want to take ownership of those. Would that be okay? You can even, you're
But
welcome.
through our tour though, Sherry, there were
Yeah.
a lot of them that the roof is on the ground. I mean, and the porch is completely off and there's no windows in them. And, I mean, they are bad. And they're absolutely just terrible.
I bought a house for $6,500 and everybody laughed at me. I sold it for $99,000.
Well,
You know, less than a year later. I put about $30,000 into it.
And it had been abandoned for a while?
It had been totally abandoned in an eyesore for the neighborhood on Jones Street in the car.
Brian, there's houses
Yeah.
that people have bought for $500 out there and they're living in. Yeah, some of them are bad though.
We'll be in touch, Brian.
Yeah.
okay, well, our work's cut out for us. It's good to hear that we do have some programs underway, and I agree that it's far more preferable to save a house, and especially as hard up as we are for affordable housing, so very good. Thank everybody for their comments. Anything else under new business from anybody? Okay, Anthony, do we have anybody signed up for public comments?
Yes, sir, we do have a couple people signed up for public comments.
Okay. I'll repeat those instructions. If calling in by phone for a public comment, dial *3 to raise your hand to be recognized. If connected by a computer, click the hand icon on your participants panel to be recognized. So Anthony, who do we have?
We have Danielle Stewart, and we have Jerica Jones.
Okay, Danielle, can you hear me?
I just wanted to say, on behalf of the Raleigh County Community Action Association and our current and future residents at the shelter, I just wanted to say thank you all very much for passing that ordinance. I think it's going to be a huge benefit to the city in the long term, giving people a place where they can stay so that they aren't sleeping on the streets or burning down abandoned houses to stay warm. I also want to say we would love to work with you all on the land program that you mentioned. I had talked with Crystal a couple of, well, maybe last week, about how we could get involved with improving our housing stock. So that's an area that hopefully we'll be able to work together. That's all I have. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Danielle. Next, Anthony.
Next is Jerica Jones.
Okay, Jerica Jones, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to express any comments.
I need to know, I've been fighting a battle that the city has been sending me around. I live on Woodlawn Avenue, and I have a neighbor who parks directly in front of my driveway every single day. He leaves his truck across the driveway where his home is, and it's broke down and it has a flat tire. The police department says that they cannot do anything about it because he can pump the flat tire and move the vehicle, although it hasn't moved in 7 months. I've called city council and talked to them. I've called the fire department and code enforcement. I've called the mayor's office. I've called every number, just trying to understand what are the actual rules and regulations for parking on a street. It's only a main problem for me because I'm handicapped. I have a handicap sticker. I do have a carport, but my fiance lives with me as we're getting ready to get married in 2 months. So I need a parking place that I can walk into my house without having to walk up a bunch of steps but I can never do that because my sidewalk and my area that I could walk in are always blocked by my neighbor. And I want to understand the rules of this because it does not seem fair.
Okay, Ms. Jones, what's your house number on Woodlawn?
914, and the police have been called numerous times.
Chief, can you investigate that again, please?
Yes, sir, I will look into it.
All right.
Somebody go speak with her directly.
Okay.
Mayor, is it possible that if someone is handicapped, they may be able to apply for a permit so we can denote that curb directly in front of their home as a handicapped space?
I'd have to look.
I do have a handicap pass.
No, I understand, ma'am, you do. My question is if we might be able to make the curb in front of your space blue, and then frankly put a sign there so that a person could be fined if they park there contrary to your placard.
Well, here is the only issue with that. If somebody drives me to physical therapy or drives me somewhere and then brings me back and I don't have my pass, then they would get ticketed for just trying to help me because a lot of times I can't drive because I'm having to go to appointments.
Well, I understand, ma'am. I mean, honestly, the person who would be calling most likely would be you, as it's in front of your home. We were just thinking that if we could denote the space for handicap accessibility, it may preclude someone from parking there for prolonged periods of time.
Okay, because even the police have told me, well, you can park on the yellow spot that's, designated as no parking, which would encourage my vehicle to get hit. And the school bus that turns through there almost hits whoever's vehicle is there at the time. It's just a bad situation because they have 3 spots in front of their house. I have 2 in front of mine, and they take both of mine. So I only have 1 spot for my carport, and there's 2 vehicles for my home. And I just want to be able to park in front of my steps so I can walk inside my door. Their vehicle with a messed up tire has been sitting there over 7 months now.
Okay, we'll, Chief Bailey will assign somebody to investigate that, and if there's any way we can help, we certainly will.
And if we could just find a way to be clear on whatever regulations there are, so when people like me in the future call to understand them, they can know what the rules are.
Okay, that's, we will follow up on that. Do you have a phone number? Ms. Jones?
I'm sorry, it cut out. My phone cut out.
Okay, your phone number, please.
304-731-1066.
739?
731.
1066?
Correct.
Okay, somebody will be in touch with you within 2 days.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Anthony, anybody else?
That concludes all the individuals.
Okay, very good. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.